Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining the Operational Excellence with Propel session. We'll be starting it here in just a minute, waiting for just a few more attendees to join. Okay. So, Kurt, I see you on there. I just want to check something. Can you hit the little raise my hand button, Kurt, if you would, just so I can see? There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. All lines are on mute, so you can hear me, but not the other way around. We'll give it just one more minute, and then we'll fire off the event. Okay, in the spirit of honoring those who have logged in on time, we'll go ahead and get started. This is Matt Logston with Cohesive. We're going to be presenting today Propel and giving an overview of how you achieve operational excellence, specifically leveraging your data out of Maximo. Just a few rules. All lines are on mute for the quality of the call, so we don't hear the background noise. You can submit questions in two ways. There's a little window that you'll see in your dialog box. You can type them in there and we'll answer those at the end. The other way, just like Kurt demonstrated, you can hit raise the hand feature and we'll see you got your hand up, and then we'll unmute your mic and you can insert your question. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff Quick. And Jeff, why don't you get us started?
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. And good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Appreciate you taking the time with us this afternoon. I'm the Director of Change Management and Marketing here at Cohesive Solutions, and we're excited to introduce you to Propel, a performance management solution that links your business objectives to your data to provide crucial business insights. And these business insights enable your organization to be informed as to what actions are necessary to achieve your desired results. Today, our presenter is Anthony Honecker, our Vice President of Product Strategy and Development. Anthony is also the original thought leader behind Propel, so we're excited to learn from him today. Before handing it over to Anthony, I also want to just share a few thoughts on who we are and what we do here at Cohesive. You can see on the slide, but I'd like to say here at the beginning is we have a great mix of veterans with industry experience and young folks that bring great energy and new insights to our team as we go out to provide the best service we can to our customers, and that's the most important. As you can see, we are a business solutions and consulting firm, and that means not only that we're a premier system integrator of Maximo, but that we also are physicians of the process. Matt likes to say that a lot. Physicians of the process, meaning that we have a lot of experience doing this, and we use that experience to enable our customers to achieve the best results possible. We are in the enterprise asset management and performance management solutions space. And performance management to us means that we want to make sure that what we do and install works for the long term. And the business transformation consulting is basically saying that when you introduce a new system, you are transforming your business, and we don't want to look at it as just one small piece, but we want to look at the whole business and consider how that impacts the whole business. And so we look at it that way. And we have extensive experience, as noted. We have tons of experience. A lot of folks have been doing this a long time, and it's great to have that experience leveraged with our young folks to make this work. A reputable name is probably the most important thing to us. We want to do great work. We want to make sure that our customers achieve their desired results. And we love challenging the status quo. That really falls into the change management vein, which I love. And it's very important that we do that together, because when we leave, we want to make sure that what we've done sticks. of course, ultimately, at the end of the day, your success is our success, and that's how we run our business. And we are great at Maximo. We understand Maximo. We install Maximo, but ultimately, it's all about our customer. And with that, I'd like to hand the reins over to Anthony.
All right. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for attending the Achieving Operational Excellence with Propel webinar on this Friday afternoon. We have it's a fairly short presentation, and we're going to go through a number of topics as you see here, starting with what is operational excellence, a little bit of definition and around the key elements of operational excellence, and a brief description of what is Propel, and then we'll get into the meat of the topics around achieving operational excellence with Propel. We're going to have questions and answers at the end, as Matt had described earlier. You can type your questions into the GoToWebinar dialogue there, or at the end of the session, we'll leave some time for questions, and we'll unmute your line to take any questions for those that want to raise your hand. And then we'll wrap up. So that's the agenda for the next, say, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll finish with some time for Q&A. So we'll start with the question of what is operational excellence. I've included 3 definitions here that I found on the internet, one from Wikipedia, which is, of course, the source of all internet truth. The Operational Excellence Society has a definition of operational excellence, and then one of several management consulting firms that I found online offers a definition, and there are dozens, if not more, out there that you can sort of look at to find, what is the definition of operational excellence. And I'm not going to read these word for word, but I will highlight there are a number of common threads that you'll see in these definitions as well as others around achieving operational excellence or operational excellence. So things like sustainable improvement or continuous improvement is a very common thread, along with the utilization of key performance metrics to measure performance. You see in the middle there a reference to a state of alignment for pursuing strategies that we'll talk about, a commitment of a corporate culture. And then lastly, a focus on results such as lower operational costs, lower operational risk, and increased revenues, all relative to competitors. These are some of the sort of key elements, if you will, of operational excellence that we found amongst these definitions. And just to sort of highlight those a little more, if we focus on or look at, corporate culture is committed. When it comes to operational excellence and performance management, we're talking about more than just reports or dashboards or charts or graphs or, individuals that are using tools for data analysis or data mining or analytics or those sorts of things. But we're talking about an organizational focus and a culture around achieving operational excellence. And that starts with this state of alignment for pursuing strategies. When we talk about Propel, you'll hear us use the word alignment quite frequently, and that means staying focused on what are our operational and strategic objectives and ensuring that we have alignment from those objectives through to initiatives around continuous improvement and connections to the processes, the business processes, and the data. And that data is what feeds into the key performance metrics, which are what we call the language that allows an organization to measure, communicate, and articulate performance. And if you want to improve performance, you need to be able to measure that performance. Sustainable improvement is also a common thread. What we're talking about here is that there is no finish line. You don't achieve operational excellence and you're done. It's not a certification that you get or a project that you implement that has a finish line. It's a continuous journey rather than a destination. So it's something that once you subscribe to and implement, you'll want to and will want to continue that on and on. So there is no finish line. But in the end, it still comes down to results. Operationally excellent companies are going to find that they've reduced costs, they've shortened life cycles, they've reduced downtimes, they've eliminated things like stockouts or near eliminated failures and rogue spending and the like, and overall improvement from a competitive standpoint around return on investments, return on assets, better planning and execution, and overall better operations. Those are the results, the outcomes that operationally excellent companies are looking for. So that's one sort of perspective, if you will, on what we mean by operational excellence. If we shift now, what is Propel? Propel is, we brand it as a performance management solution, and performance management we define, as you see here in red, as an objective-driven process used by high-performing organizations that focuses on the health and management of key business processes to ensure organizational alignment and effectiveness in supporting business objectives. Now, there are a few words there that we'll key in on. One is, you see objectives mentioned a couple of times, and a focus on being objective-driven. That's a common thread that you're going to see throughout the presentation and discussion around Propel and performance management, is the context that is given from being objective-driven. And then also, as mentioned earlier, alignment, having alignment between those objectives and the KPIs that allow us to measure performance, and all of the activities and the initiatives and the various components of performance management are all in alignment, including the implementation of business processes and the resulting data that come from those business processes. So those are a couple of keywords that you can focus on, as objective-driven and alignment. Below that, just some of the basic details from a product perspective about Propel. It is a business-focused application with a low IT overhead. So it's not an IT tool. It's not something that would be looked at as needing an IT sort of project that is planned and implemented. It's a cloud-based application that is provided in order to minimize overall IT resource and overhead from an infrastructure and sort of personnel perspective. For those organizations that require on-premises solutions, though, we do provide that as an option. Obviously, that increases a bit the overhead and the IT aspect of deployment of Propel. But whether it's delivered cloud-based or on-premises, Propel deploys in days and gives immediate value. There's a very, very quick time to value in terms of being able to visualize and performance and begin the journey of achieving operational excellence. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination. We connect directly to IBM Maximo in order to extract the business process data around processes such as work execution and asset management, materials management, procurement, and the like. But it's not based on Maximo. This isn't a Maximo plugin or add-on or extension. It doesn't leverage any Maximo technology, or it's independent from a licensing perspective. And it's also version independent or version proof as well. We can extract data from Maximo 6. and 7.x versions, as well as going forward, we'll be able to connect to and work with any future version of Maximo as well. Beyond Maximo, we can extract data from any business process system beyond Maximo as well, in order to bring data in that's relevant to understand overall business performance. Obviously, with our heritage and background from a enterprise asset management perspective, Maximo is our sweet spot, and that's where we focus in talking to customers initially, at least. So that's a little bit about Propel, just at a sort of top level. I think you'll get a better perspective as we now get into the details of how to achieve operational excellence with Propel. And what we have here is a visual of a roadmap, almost, if you will, or sequence of steps that can be employed as part of this journey toward operational excellence. And it starts with, as I promised, talking about becoming objective-driven to start with. That's going to set the stage for everything that we do from a Propel and performance management perspective. Second, we'll leverage a pre-configured EAM data model and metrics catalog for Maximo and other enterprise asset management systems. We need to gain trust in our data and processes. And then next, we can then establish the key performance indicators, or KPIs. We also want to measure the results of our initiatives. We want to plan responses for when things don't go the way we expect them to from a performance and expectations perspective. We want to be able to automate the monitoring of our business conditions in order to ensure that we have this sort of continuous, always focused on performance mentality. And lastly, collaborate, have the entire organization as a whole collaborate around achievement of these goals and objectives and operational excellence. So those are the sort of 8, if you will, stops on the way that we'll focus in on. So it's, again, starts with becoming objective driven. Most organizations can define, if you will, well, what are we trying to accomplish as an organization from a strategic perspective as well as operational perspective? How would I organize, typically hierarchically, what are our focus areas and objectives, and what do we want to accomplish? And whether it's, as you see here, sort of process-based example, materials management, procurement, asset management, and work management within an organization, or maybe it's by geo or product line or something along those lines. Most organizations can say, this is what we're trying to accomplish. We want availability and reliability of our assets. We want an effective and cost-efficient work management and labor force. We want optimal supply chain around materials management and procurement, and that's going to help us drive competitiveness, availability overall, productivity, quality, regulatory compliance, and the like from a top level. Most organizations can sort of define it. This is what our strategy is. This is what our overall objectives are. But what we often see a gap in is leveraging that to really become objective driven and allowing or using that objective hierarchy, if you will, to drive process and data requirements rather than being data driven and saying, oh, well, we've got all this data, let's see what we can make out of it, but rather let the objectives define what the data requirements are and drive the measures and any process improvements. What we also see is a need to focus or understand on the relationships between objectives. How do lower level objectives support higher level objectives, and are those objectives in lockstep, if you will? And then what's also key from our perspective is in this objective context, we want to be able to view our performance communicated through KPIs. We want to understand the activities the organization is employed in around those objectives, and then any planned or active or historical initiatives all can be viewed, should be viewed within this objective context. So in Propel, we have an application called the objective wheel, which takes that hierarchy of objectives and renders it in this radial format that gives me a perspective of what are the relationships between the objectives and what are our current performance relative to these objectives. So where I see color is where I can gauge and measure a status and understand what our results are. Where I don't see color might be areas where we need to configure or implement processes or understand how the data needs to be aligned to these objectives in order to be able to reveal those results. We can also see examples of misalignment where lower level objectives might not be supporting our higher level objectives. And on any of these in Propel, we can drill down into the details to see the specifics of, well, why are we yellow in this area, or why are we red, and what activities are going on, what initiatives are in place to improve in this particular area, what are we doing to respond to these areas where we are in the red, and the like. So that is one component of being objective driven in Propel, is leveraging the ability to view performance from an objective perspective. So next on our journey is to leverage Propel's pre-configured Enterprise Asset Management, or EAM, data model and metrics catalog. So we have, as mentioned earlier, pre-configured connection to Maximo, where we extract the data and populate our Propel process-centric data model, which is focused on key EAM processes like work planning, scheduling and execution, labor utilization, and all those that you read here. And along with that data model comes a catalog of pre-configured EAM metrics, which are based on Cohesive's extensive industry experience that Jeff talked about at the top of the presentation, leveraging our many years in these industries and processes. All of that is baked in to the product and gives you a quick start or an early jump, if you will, on getting to where you need to visualize performance. So you visualize performance rapidly by avoiding having to develop all of those capabilities into whatever tools you might use otherwise. So any BI development activities, you see the sort of progression on the right-hand side where you have to understand how the data is organized and modeled in Maximo or whatever source system you need to design and architect this metrics data repository. You have to build the mechanism to extract the data from Maximo, transform and load that data into this repository, build the complex queries with the joins and the criteria, generate the facts or the transactional details, develop and configure the formulas and flags and counts and sums and averages to populate these measures, and then ultimately aggregate those measures over time by week, month, and year, and other dimensions such as site and priority and work group and commodity and buyer and the like. All of those things are already done in Propel and pre-configured so that they're ready for you to start. And all that you really need to do to begin getting that immediate value is configure the visualization of how do you want to visualize that performance. So that's the quick time to value and the quick start that we talk about with Propel that allows you to very quickly get to that point. Next, on our journey, we want to talk about gaining trust in data and processes. And there's multiple components to the formula that gives us trustworthy information. Let's take a sample example here, if you will, of a measure like critical work completed on time. You have to have alignment, as we've mentioned earlier, around common definition of that metric, what work is included or excluded, for example. You have to have data quality, which means you have the minimum attributes necessary to compute the metric. So we have to have scheduled and actual finish dates in order to understand if a work order was complete on time. And then lastly, you want confidence that the processes that are in place are generating good data. So you want all of your completed work orders should have actual labor hours, and they all should, critical work orders should have a priority based upon the way your processes are implemented. And if that data is missing, then it's suspect. How did that work get complete, or why is it missing a priority? The quality or the sum of those, alignment, quality, and confidence, gives us trustworthy information that allows us to make good decisions. In Propel, what we can do is we can overlay the data, what we call data quality and confidence lines, in order to indicate a level of trust that you can apply to the underlying measures that you want to use to measure performance. And we can account the anomalies, the individual issues that you may have with your data, weigh those based upon severity, and provide a path forward to allow you to improve overall data quality and confidence, improve process integrity, and ultimately give you trustworthy information to allow you to move forward. And moving forward then is establishing those key performance indicators. So while we provide a catalog of metrics that give you that quick start, metrics are still just numbers that, while they're valuable and informational, they lack a certain context. Key performance indicators, on the other hand, are a management tool that measures performance relative to an objective. Again, we're back to that objective-driven aspect. So KPIs are objective-driven. KPIs really are metrics then with a management context. As mentioned, they're objective-driven, associated with some objective, like you might have seen in the objective wheel. They're time-driven. They're a given time period in which we're evaluating performance. They're what I call dimensionally driven. They're associated with an area of the business or process. So it's site-specific, or it only applies to critical assets, or it only applies to a certain class of buyers or certain fees or contracts or whatever the case might be. So we want to ensure that we're measuring the right thing. And then lastly, expectation-driven. Set targets and warning and alert levels are defined for each KPI. Once you have all of that context, then you have an ability to manage performance and understand performance. So establishing what is the objective, what are the dimensions that we apply this to, what is the time period we're evaluating, and as you see here, what are our expectations of performance? And typically you see the stoplight, red, yellow, and green alert, warning, and target levels that can be defined, and then that allows you to easily visualize any metric relative to that context and how are we performing. Next on our journey is measuring the results of initiatives. Initiatives in Propel are projects or campaigns or activities that have an intention to improve performance of a metric or mitigate risk of not meeting an objective's targets. So typically, the process is that we identify an area or an opportunity to improve. So when you implement Propel, you can see performance and sort of get that initial baseline to say, here's an area where we have an opportunity to improve. We want to raise this performance level. So we would plan an initiative which has time range in which some set of activities are going to be completed and establish a target or an expected result. And then that thing that most organizations tend to fail to do is actually, after an initiative, see if they got their results, see if the initiative delivered the expected return or not. So in Propel, we have an application that allows you to define what the initiative is, to associate ownership, to plan and schedule when that is going to occur, to identify a set of actions and responsibilities for what's going to happen, and most importantly, identify, well, what are the expected results? And not only identify that in a narrative form, but also a specific measure, an explicit measure that allows us to visualize whether we achieved our results or not. Next on our list is planning responses. So what happens in the unfortunate event of us missing a target? What happens if a KPI goes yellow or red? In Propel, we can configure or implement a response plan that says, here's who's responsible, here are the set of activities that we expect to occur when we are tracking in the wrong direction from a key performance indicator and a strategic operational objective, and what we expect the time frame for resolution of that being. So that response plan then results in, it's applied whenever we are monitoring business conditions. So Propel comes with call it a business condition monitoring engine, if you will, that sort of like Maximo's condition monitoring, can monitor, in this case, KPIs, those warning, alert, and target levels that you define for a KPI. And when we miss our targets or are tracking in the wrong direction, automatically generate an event that's assigned to the owner of the objective, apply that response plan, and then follow through to see, did the organization leverage this information to remedy the situation or mitigate risk or generate some sort of improvement. And then lastly, collaborate. As I mentioned before, operational excellence isn't something that individuals do. It is an organizational activity. It requires that committed corporate culture, and Propel provides a collaboration framework that makes it easy for stakeholders to be involved, to participate, to stay informed, from commenting on metrics and KPIs and annotating those, to getting updates on events and statuses, being able to see automated emails based upon performance, and subscribe to activities to stay in the loop. That's the sort of corporate culture commitment that we're talking about that allows the organization to achieve operational excellence. So at this point, we're close to the top of the hour. Take a few minutes to take any questions and answers, or any questions that may have been submitted. So Matt, I'll hand it over to you to moderate from this point.
Absolutely. So if you have a question, you can simply raise your hand and or type it into the dialog box. We'll give that just a few minutes, see if there's any questions. Okay, Anthony, I think we're good. If questions do come up, you can always reach Cohesive. Just go to our website and you'll see the contact us. There's the sheet there, so you can get more information on Propel. And we appreciate you attending this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.